Hey everybody, it's Thursday morning here in Cypress, Texas, and so I got up this morning and I actually thought I slept in, but I got up this morning, read my scriptures, and I started off with Psalms, and it's interesting, the verse that popped out of me was verse 1. He whose transgressions are forgiven, blessed is he whose transgressions are forgiven and his sin is covered. And I'm reading through the rest of it. I'm like, this is probably after David not after he had an affair with Bathsheba, and not after his exile hiding from Aslab, but after he called for the second census. This is when this is. Okay. God called for a census, and then David called for another one, right? And he got, punished for this one, right? And it got me to thinking about, well, that's seems almost incongruent, right? But God loved David. Oh, wow. All right. Just like you love your kids. And what do I mean by that? Okay. 2-year-olds are bad, right? They're just trying you every second, okay? And my oldest boy, when he was 2, gave terrible twos a whole new meaning. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, right? But he was my boy. I loved him, even though he was this little monster at 2 years old, right? And one time, we lived in Panama. He was born in Panama, and everything, and the only English-speaking channel was Armed Forces Radio and Television, which we watched all the time, and the sports, they'd always show pitchers throwing strikes and guys hitting home runs. And man, he was throwing stuff all over the house. And one day I'm on the couch, I'm laying on the couch, and all of a sudden, zing, right past my face is a matchbox car. And that was what he threw with his left hand. And he's winding up with his right hand, and I'm like, no. And the threads, my hands, hits me right in the eye, cut me in the eye. I was so mad, but I was tickled to death that he had such a good arm, right? It was a mix. So I can relate to God the way he has to deal with us, and had to develop these protocols to deal with us. When we're the cats that he's herding. Okay? Just think about that. That motorcycle, that thing is so loud. They just went past us. Who in their right mind would want to be riding that thing? He's a half mile down the road and I can still hear him. Right? That vibration. Just like we do goofy stuff. Right? And God accounts for it. He lets us operate within those parameters, right? and like our own parameters. That's who'd have thunk that, that any of this would be allowed. Things that are not allowed, we are doing, right? And he still blesses us, okay? And there's a strength class last night, and it was talking about a couple things. The symbolism of in the Bible, like, Jonah in the belly of the whale, right? That how's that even happen? The stomach acid of the whale would have just consumed all his flesh, Jonah's flesh, right? That it's symbolic. So there's a lot of things in the Bible, and the stories are symbolic, and that's one of them, right? But here's what's amazing about that is when you read in Genesis, a lot of things are symbolic, like the story of Job, right? Job and Jonah's stories are like the oldest in the Bible, right? They were like the first ones they got in the Bible, and but a lot of the story of Job, a lot of symbolism there, right? And the sheep mean people, trees mean leaders, right? But there's times in the Bible, like here in Genesis, with the story of Jacob and the sheep. They're talking about sheep, right? The writer's talking about sheep, right? But God created the events to tell the story about Jesus, right? Where sheep are people and trees are leaders, right? So yeah, they're real sheep, they're real trees, right? But God created the life of those leaders in the Bible to represent people and leaders, all right? And so they're talking about how, the original sin is choosing other than God, okay? And by Adam choosing Eve because he was lonely, being with God wasn't enough, right? That we're not supposed to be with the opposite sex, right? But we were created with this attraction. I had to wrestle with that, like all night. I had to wrestle with that, right? But here's what I came out of this with, right? Oh my God, I've had this experience before. All right, we can't be putting that woman ahead of God. When we do, we are worshiping somebody or someone other than God. Okay? And then when you go and you read, in I want to say it's Ephesians, talking about love, right? Women don't have to love their husbands. They just have to respect them. Men have to love their wives. Oh, but how? It doesn't talk about infatuation at all, right? Infatuation, that is basically worship, right? When you got that woman on your mind all the time, right? Other than God, all right? Ahead of God in prayer, and that woman's being with us in your mind over God, right? that's when there's a mess. Okay, it's got to be God first. Okay, but we're called. Men are not called to be infatuated with a woman. The way a man's supposed to love a woman is to take care of her. All right, a man is supposed to love a woman by covering her. All right, and protect her like you do your 2-year-old. Right, no matter how you want to protect them from the outside, other people, situations. You have to be strong enough and resourceful enough and have enough wherewithal to protect that woman from any anxiety, right? And cover her, no matter what. Even despite some of her way of thinking or her decisions. You got to be strong enough to absorb the shock of that, all right? So that's what I came out of, with the teaching last night and my scripture reading and meditation this morning. All right, have a great day.